Good morning, everyone, especially to you, sir. Today, I'm going to talk about the economic issues. The first one, poverty in the Philippines. Poverty is a very big problem in the Philippines. There are some multiple causes of poverty, and poverty affects life in the Philippines in a very adverse way. One of the main reasons for poverty in the Philippines is the corrupt politicians. The greedy people in power only think of themselves. Citizens of the Philippines are also responsible for poverty in their country. The Philippines is an overpopulated country and there is a lack of family planning and no sex education, which result in a tremendous population explosion, and it is difficult for any government to satisfy the need of such a large population with limited resources. The Philippines is a country prone to natural disaster and a climate change. Due to sudden climate change or natural disaster, the agrarian society of the Philippines has to suffer a lot. Poverty is the problem of not just a one person, but the whole country. It slowed down the economic progress of the Philippines. In the next slide, numbers from the Philippines Statistic Authority show more Filipinos join the ranks of those living in a poverty in 2021 from 2018. The percentages rose from 16.7% to 18.7% on nearly 20 million people last year over 17 million 3 years ago. Our Social Economic Planning Secretary blames the lingering health crisis. And also, economic managers aim to cut the poverty rate to an ambitious to 9% in 2028. The year administrations end its term. They plan to focus on job creation. More Filipinos will get out of poverty as the economy reopens. But while there is a optimism, the Social Welfare Department admits bringing the poverty level down is challenging. Under this news, ang mga comment na makikita mo ay huwag umasa sa gobyerno. Magsikap kayo na dagdagan na naman ang mga tamad, mga mahihirap. Magtrabaho kasi kayo, ikaw lang ang makakaahon sa sarili mo. Yes, yes naman. Huwag naman lahat-lahat iasa sa gobyerno na maghihintay ka na lamang ng grasya. Di naman gobyerno ang magdidikta ng buhay mo. But for me, we can say that to all people. Not all people have the same opportunity as yours. Kaya don't say na kasalanan mong mahirap ka, mamamatay kang mahirap. That's why government has something to do with it, 'di ba? Anong purpose ng gobyerno natin? And we all know how much potential the government can have. Our leaders will have a direct control over how they would be able to handle and resolve the issue of taxes, inflation, resources, inequalities, and security. And their decisions would cause a big impact on us. Nandito rin ang mga farmers natin, mga indigenous fishermen, mga masisipag yan. Pero, di earning minimum. Kahit buong gabi pa yan sila magtrabaho, maliit pa rin ang kanilang kikitain. Mga taong naglalako, kahit makaubos man yan sila, ay maliit pa rin. Hindi pa rin yun kakasya. That's why, ang gobyerno natin ay nagtatrabaho na kung paano nga ba, nagpaplano na kung paano nga ba makarami ng trabaho. We have an update. Poverty incidence in the Philippines recorded at 18.1% of the population in 2021. It's projected to ace to 71% this year, and thanks to recovering labor market indicators according to the World Bank. Solutions: how to eradicate the poverty. The Philippines government has reduced poverty using a mix of cash grants, better educational opportunities, family planning measures, and create more jobs and improving livelihood programs for the poor. Corruption must be curbed by electing an educated and responsible political leader who will work with the transparency and think of a national interest before self. Citizens of the country must be well educated about family planning and disaster management. If we have an and poverty from Philippine society, then good governance and proper education are the two major steps that we have to take. In the next slide, programs and project aim to minimize poverty. The first one, Pantawid Pamilyang Pilipino Program o kilala bilang 4Ps. Ano nga ba ang layunin ng Pantawid Pamilyang Pilipino Program? The main goal of the 4Ps is to break the intergenerational cycle of poverty by fostering change in behavior among parents to invest in their children and their own future health, nutrition, education, because low schooling and large malnutrition rate are strongly associated with poverty cycle in the Philippines. Ito ang pagsira sa siklo ng kahirapan na ipapasa sa bawat henerasyon sa pamamagitan ng pamumuhunan sa kalusugan at edukasyon ng mahihirap na kabataan. Kasali na rito ang Kalahi, CIDSS, Kapig-Bisig Labang sa Kahirapan, Comprehensive and Integrated Delivery of Social Services, Listahan, National Household Targeting System for Poverty Reduction, Sustainable Livelihood Program, Supplementary Feed Program, Social Pension Program, Residential Care Facilities, Home for Girls, Regional Center for Women, Regional Rehabilitation Center for Youth, Recovery and Reintegration Program for Trafficked Person, Assistance to Individual in a Crisis Situation, Minors, Traveling Abroad, Adoption, Unconditional Cash Transfer. In the next slide, population and related issues. Determinants of demographic trends, there is unstable population increase and other decrease. The size of a given population may change rapidly while others may change much more slowly. In some population, there is a high proportions of people under 15. Most of population have more females than males in the old generation. These and the other population characteristics are result of many factors which may be biological, demographic, social, economic, political, and cultural. The term population change refers to a change in the number of inhabitants of a territory during a specific period. In other words, it's a shift in the populations over time. Kung makikita nyo sa screen natin, population growth, the world population is projected to reach 8 billion on November 15, 2022. And in the Philippines, the current populations is 113,034,562 as of Tuesday, November 15, 2022, based on Worldometer elaboration of the latest United Nations data. In the next slide, components of population change. The term population change refers to a change in the number of inhabitants of a territory during a specific period. In other words, it is a shift in a populations over time. The population of any given area can only change through three processes: fertility, mortality, and migration. The first one, fertility, or a birth rate, is a demographic phenomenon greatly responsible for setting population change, means a woman has actually given birth to a live child. If the populations of a given area increases in a given period, it is a positive change growth. Positive change occurs when birth rate exceeds mortality rate, and fecundity biological capacity of a woman to have a children or a future time begins at menarche potential production. And methods to measure fertility. Methods to measure fertility. Crowd birth rate (CBR), which is computed by dividing the number of live births during a calendar year to the mid-year population of the same period expressed per 1,000 populations. Crowd rate or CBR are quite simple and straightforward. They are calculated by dividing the net total number of a case in a given time period by the total of number of a person in the populations. Birth rate is one of the most basis and important. In the next slide, factors influencing fertility differentials. The first one, education, the most important factor influencing fertility in the Philippines. The higher educational attainment, especially that a woman, the lower in the number of the children. The second one, rural-urban differential. As expected, fertility is higher in a rural areas. The difference is probably due to the fact that the rural couples cannot get information and facilities for family planning. Pero sa panahon ngayon ay may makikita ka na or nakikita na natin ang improvement lalo na sa mga rural area dahil nagkakaroon na ng mga program na implemented ng government natin. The next, age and marriage. Delay marriage means lesser exposure to fertility and therefore reduce the number of children born to a woman. Mga 40 plus na sila pero ang first baby pa nila ang kanilang ipapanganak. And last, ambition is a desire to maintain to secure a good social status is one of the factors leading to the control of fertility for many couples with a good social status. It is easier to maintain the status and ensures the same status to the children if families are relatively. Ito yung sinasabi nilang career before marriage. Ito yung bago sila magbuo o bumuo ng isang pamilya ay sinisigurado muna nila na financial stable. In the next slide, mortality refers to that it is a negative component of population change. If the population shows a decrease in a given period, it is a negative change. The negative change occurs when the fertility rate falls below the mortality rate. And measuring how many people die each year and why they die is one of the most important means along with gauging in how disease and injuries are affecting people for assessing the effectiveness of a country health system. Last meeting, Gulo discussed about it. Yung mga heart disease, mga TB, mga diabetes, etc. The ratio of the number of deaths occurring within 1 year to the mid-year population expressed per 1,000 populations, and take note it is a crowd in the sense that all ages are represented in the rate and does not take into account any variations in rates of dying at particular ages. Next, age-specific death rate is the number of deaths of person in a given age group per 1,000 population of the age group. To calculate the age-specific mortality rate, we must first calculate the age-specific rates for each group by dividing the number of deaths by respective population and then multiplying the resulting number by 1,000, an age-specific rate 0 to 39 years. And the next one, a death rate by cause of death is commonly expressed in terms of deaths from a given disease, cause of death per 100,000 population. Cause specific death rate is the number of deaths from a specified cause per 100,000 person years at risk. The numerator is typically restricted to resident deaths in a specific geographic area Heart disease is the number one cause of death. And the third one that can change the population, migration. The movement of people from one area to another to settle permanently. Migration can have positive as well as a negative effect on the life of the migrants. Ang migration ay tumutukoy sa paglipat ng tirahan ng tao mula sa isang bansa o papunta sa ibang bansa. Bilang karagdagang detail, ang migration ay maaaring panandalian o pangmatagalan, pasamantala o permanente. And also, according to Lewis 1954, migration can also play an important role in determining population growth in an area. Large migration from rural to urban areas not only reduce population pressures in the rural areas but can contribute the industrialization by supplying low-cost labor to urban sectors. Kinds of migration. The first one, international migration, is the movement of people from one country to another to settle permanently. The movement of persons away from their place or usual residence and across an international border to a country of which they are not national. And the second one, immigration. The coming into the country of which the person not are citizens for permanent residence. The coming of people into a country in order to live and work there. And immigration, the going from one country for permanent residence in other country. Is the relocation or process of people leaving one country to reside in another country. And what is the difference between immigration and immigration? In the next slide, mapag-uusapan natin ang population structure, age, and sex composition. The population's pyramid represents the breakdown of the population by gender and age at a given point in time. It consists of two histograms, one for each gender by convention, men on the left and women on the right. And where the members are shown horizontally are the age vertically. Philippines age structure. As of the beginning of 2022, according to our statement, according to United Nations statistic, Philippines had the following population age distribution: 34.6% of population under 15 and 61.1% of population between 15 and 64 years old and 4.3% of population 65 plus. In absolute figures, estimate 38 million and 918,447 young people under 15 years old, 19,852,912 males, and 19,065,535 females, and 68,607,395 persons between 15 and 64 years old, and 34,307,629 males, and 34,299,766 females, and 4,796,149 persons above 64 years old, and 2,070,094 males, and 2,726,055 females. I prepared a simplified model of the population distribution pyramid, which is broken down into three main age group. The groups are the same as we used above, and population under 15, between 15 and 64, population which is over 65 years old. Take note, the pyramid is provided is not corresponding to the data